All right, so for today we are doing section 2.2a, solving inequalities. So inequalities, let me write them down. Inequalities, they're symbols, okay? They can be expressions and things like that, but we use symbols, okay? So this symbol means less than, whereas this symbol means less than or equal to. Okay, then we have greater than. And of course, greater than or equal to. So remember, less than, we actually in math, we call it strictly less than. That's what it's called, strictly less than, but most people don't say that. Most teachers don't say that in middle school, they just say less than, okay? We like to say strictly less than because strictly less than means if I say x is less than 5, that means it can't be 5. It has to be strictly less than 5. So 4.99 is okay, 4 is okay, 3 is okay, right? It's less than 5. And then we have less than or equal to, which would mean that if x less than or equal to 5 can be any number less than 5, but it can also be 5, right? So less than or equal to means it can include the number, or it can be smaller than, or maybe greater than, right? But we have the greater than, we have greater than or equal to as well. So the little symbol with the little line under it means or equal to, right? And then the last one that we have right here, not equal to. Okay, which by the way, I just reminded myself, all your grades for your quizzes have been input into your grades already. Okay, so if you were to look at Aries, you should see an up-to-date grade representation that has the quizzes. I still haven't put in the homework because I'm not done going over them, but give me a little bit of time. Homework usually takes a little longer. Okay, but all the quizzes have been graded. So, all right. So these are what we call our inequalities. Okay. Now, I'm going to put over here to the right side. How can I do it? Bubbling, I guess we can call it, or the dots. Okay. So how to mark. Okay. How are you going to mark it on a number line? So a less than usually will be an open circle, and it'll normally go to the left. Because think about it, on a number line, aren't all the numbers smaller as you go to the left? Right? So those are less than each other. As you keep going left, they're getting smaller and smaller. Less than or equal to will have the same direction, but the mark is going to be solid. It's going to be a solid dot. Instead of an empty dot, it'll be a solid dot. So whenever it can be equal to, you got to color in the dot. Okay? Greater than is going to be an open dot going to the right. Okay? Because again, think of a number line. As you move to the right, the numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they're greater as you go to the right side. Greater than or equal to, that's a solid dot going to the right. Okay? And then the last one, not equal to, I don't really like to show this one, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to change the color on it, okay? Just because this is not one that you guys have to worry about. But it is an inequality. But it normally looks like that. A not equal to, so if you say like x cannot equal 3, that just means you put an empty circle at 3 and then you go to both directions. That means it can equal any number as long as it's not 3, right? So it'll be a line that goes in both directions, but just not at one point, okay? But again, I put that in green because we're not going to be using it. We're only going to use the ones that are above it, okay? So one thing I always tell my students to try to make things easier for you guys is to follow the arrow. Because a lot of times they're like, well, which way should I go, left or right? And I say, follow the arrow. But that's good advice, if you set it up right. Okay? So, just a real quick point of advice. Let me put right here. A point of advice. So this is my advice to you. I'm going to put make sure to keep your variables on the left side when you solve. And I'm going to put right here, if possible. Because sometimes it's easier just to leave it on the right side. Okay? But if you can keep it on the left side, then all you have to do is follow the arrow. If the arrow is pointing left, that means when you draw your graph, you're going to go to, well, this is your left side. So when the arrow is going left, you're going to want to just go left. If the arrow is pointing right, you're going to go right. Okay? But that's only true if your variable stays on the left side. We call it standard point. Okay? What happens if it's on the other side? Then you just go the other way. So I always tell people if it's on the opposite side, you go the opposite way. Okay? So I'm going to put right here. If it's on the opposite side, it is one S, right? Opposite? Yeah. If it's on the opposite side, draw the line the opposite way. So right now I'm going to show you some examples of what I'm talking about. Now we're not going to do any calculation, but we are going to do a little bit of drawing. Okay? So if we started with the problem and we solved everything, and what I saw at the very end was like x greater than or equal to 2. Let's say that was my answer, x greater than or equal to 2. What I would do, and thankfully for you guys, if you guys look at the worksheet, they already have all the number lines. You guys don't have to draw them. If it doesn't have a number line, that means you don't have to draw a number line, okay? But the number lines are there for you. But for me, I'm going to have to draw. So let me draw one for us here. I'm going to put my answer in the middle. That's a little trick that I tell people. That way you don't have to like put too many numbers if you don't want to. But here's 3 and 4. Here's 1 and 0. Okay? I'm going to change my ink here. So if I have to graph x greater than or equal to 2, first off, greater than or equal to, is that a solid dot or is that an open dot? That's a solid dot. So I'm going to go to 2 and I'm going to put a solid dot. And since my variable is on the left side, all I have to do is follow the arrow. Which way is the arrow pointing? To the right. So I'm going to go like this. Okay, look right here. The arrow is pointing to the right side. This way. Okay? So I'm going to go to the right side when I draw it. Okay? So what do I mean by if it's on the opposite side, you go the opposite way? Well, this is what I'm talking about. Let's say you get an answer of, I don't know, m, oops, I'm sorry, not m. Let's do like -3 is greater than m. Something like this. So you went through and you solved everything and you noticed, oh man, my letter's on the opposite side. Okay? So in that case, let me go ahead and draw a number line. Again, it's not like you make it much more difficult, but it does look a little weird, but that's okay. So I'm just going to make a real quick number line there. So -5, -4, -3, -2, -1. Okay? And it does say greater than. What kind of dot is greater than? Is that empty or solid? Empty, right? Yeah, that one's empty. So empty dot. Now, you see how right now that symbol is pointing to the right. But my variable is on the wrong side. It's supposed to be on the left. It's on the right side. It's on the opposite side. So what did I say? If it's on the opposite side, draw the line the opposite way. So right now it's pointing to the right, so I'm going to go left. Okay? That's the trick to doing these things. Okay? That right there is the most confusing part to most people when you're first learning how to do this stuff or reviewing it, is which way should I draw the arrow? It truly depends on where your variable is. If your variable is on the left side, the side that we would like, then just follow the arrow. The arrow will tell you either go right or left. I'm doing left because of me, but you're either going to go right or left. But if the variable is on the opposite side, then it's telling you that you got to do it the opposite way. So if it's pointing this way, you're going to want to go that way. All right? So that's like the hardest part to drawing these things. Other than that, I mean, most of this is just solving and getting stuff done. Now, there is one more thing that I have to tell you guys. Multiplying or dividing inequalities. Now, when you're solving these inequalities, you can add, okay, you can add them, you can add numbers from left to right, you can subtract numbers from left to right. It doesn't do anything special. You add and subtract. Yay, it's good. We add and subtract. When you multiply and divide, it also doesn't have too much of an influence. Like you can divide both sides by 5, you can multiply both sides by 3. No big deal, but there's a little catch. Okay? There's a little catch. If you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, then your symbol, your inequality, has to flip. Okay? So if I divide both sides of an inequality by a -2, then if my inequality was pointing to the left side, then I have to make it point to the right side. Okay, I got to flip it when I do that. Okay, so let me write that down, and then we'll do some examples, like I said, and then you guys will get your homework. So the rule is, if you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, you must change the direction of the inequality. I'll just put right here the symbol, okay, just to be sure. So if you multiply both sides of an inequality by a negative, multiply or divide, sorry, both sides of an inequality by a negative number, okay, that's the key. You only do this if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number. If you multiply or divide by a positive number, you don't have to do anything, okay? But if you do like divided by -2, divided by -2 on both sides, then you got to make sure that you switch that inequality around. If it's a less than, you make it greater than. If it's a greater than or equal to, you make it a less than or equal to. Okay, you got to flip it. All right. If you add both sides by a positive number, that's great. Nothing to do. If I add both sides by a negative number, that's great. Because right there it doesn't say anything about adding or subtracting. It says only multiplying or dividing. Okay? Only multiplying or dividing. Then you have to flip that inequality. Okay? And you got to make sure it's a negative number, not just any number, but negative number. So we're gonna do that, and we'll see what we get. So, all right. So I have covered one of the problems right now by these definitions. Everything I've done, because the very first problem in your homework says, when do you switch the direction of the sign when solving an inequality problem? Well, there it is. that's when you do it. Okay? So let's go ahead and do some problems here. So this is going to be example number 1. Like I said, I'm going to try to do half of your homework today. I hope you guys don't mind. We're going to solve and graph. Okay, so solve and graph. And here's the problem. Negative 3 is greater than or equal to negative 8m plus 5m. So, I mean, these problems don't look that difficult. This one's pretty easy. I have 2 sets of variables, but they're on the same side. All I got to do is combine them, and I'm good. Okay? So, working on the right side, negative 8m plus 5m. That gives me what m? Negative 3m. Okay? And then in order to solve for m, what do I do? Divide by what? By negative 3. So I'm about to divide both sides by a negative number. So what am I supposed to do with the symbol? Switch it, right? So it's got to become less than or equal to now. Okay? This becomes a 1. This becomes an m. Which direction is my arrow going to point when I draw it? Is it going to go left or is it going to go right?
Right.
Right. How do I know it's pointing to the right? I know it's pointing left.
Get the variables on the right.
The variable's on the opposite side of where I want it, right? I want the variable on the left. If my variable's on the left, then I follow directions. The way the arrow's pointing, that's what I'm going to do. But if the variable's on the right side, that means it's on the opposite side. So I got to go the opposite way, right? Now some people say, well, can't I just flip it? Yeah, if you want to flip it, you could put the m here, the 1 there, like that. And then you see how the arrow's pointing at the 1? Make sure you do that, okay? Make sure it's pointing. But notice, which way am I supposed to draw that one? I got to go right. Either way, I got to go right, okay? I just don't like telling people to rewrite the answer because sometimes you might mess up in the direction that you draw the arrow and now you got it wrong when initially you had it right, okay? So I try not to make you guys do extra work. So let's go ahead and put a number line here. Again, you guys are going to be provided with your own number line, so you're not going to have to do it. The only thing I don't like about these number lines, unfortunately, is that they draw them right under the problem. So you might have to draw your line under the number line or right over. It's up to you. I'm not a big fan of how they do it. Or if you just want to draw your own after, do that. Okay, I probably would draw my own. But all right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, here's 0, and negative 1. Is this going to be a solid or an empty dot? Solid dot at 1, okay, because my answer is a 1, so I'm going to go to 1, and I'm going to draw a solid dot. Which direction did we say? To the right. Okay, I know it's pointing left, but since it's on the opposite side, the variable, I got to go the opposite way. And that's it. That's all you got to do. Okay, now, of course, not every problem is this short, right? Some of them are going to be a little bit more challenging. So let's move on to some that are a little bit more challenging. So here we go. Example number 2. Before I move on, any questions on this one? All right, I wanted to make sure I did one where a negative divided or something. That way you guys can see it. So I got lucky. The first one I picked, it did it. So, all right, example number 2. We're going to solve and graph again. And here's the problem. 6 times 1 plus 7x plus 6x is less than negative 90. So this one looks a lot more complicated. But, I mean, it's nothing too difficult. You treat these like equal sign problems. You just got to remember the division or multiplication by negatives, right? But you don't treat them any different. So here we go. Let's distribute first, okay? So 6 times 1, 6 times 7x, right? So it's going to be 6 plus 42x plus 6x less than negative 90. Let's combine my like terms. So I have 42 plus 6, that's going to be 48x. So 6 plus 48x less than negative 90. Now I'm going to have to move that 6 out of the way, right? So I'm going to subtract it on both sides, okay? So I'm going to move that 6 over to that side, so I'm going to make it negative. So negative 90 minus 6 is negative 96, and I have 48x. Now to finish this problem up, I have to divide. But I'm dividing by a positive number. Do I have to flip the symbol? No. So this is x less than negative 2. Less. Okay? So, do I get to follow the arrow's directions this time? Yeah, right? Because my x is on the left side, it's on the correct side. So I don't want to say correct, but it's on the formal side, the one we like to see, right? So, let's go ahead. My answer is negative 2, so I'm going to go ahead and make a quick small number line. And is this going to be an open or a solid circle? Open, right? Because it's a less than. So less than is open. Less than or equal to is closed. Whenever it says or equal to, solid dot. And I am going to follow directions. So this says go to the left. So there we go. We're going to the left. And we're done. Okay. When you do these things on the quiz, these are at least 2 points, sometimes 3 points on any quiz. Okay. Your work is usually 1. The answer is 1, and then the drawing is 1. So it's important you kind of do these well. Because if you just leave them empty, you lose 3 points. Okay, that's a lot of points. Right. All right, let's do one more, and then I'll let you guys try one on your own. I'm going to leave this one that looks really complicated for you guys. It's not that bad, but it just looks more complicated. I don't want to do all the. It kind of looks like the one that we just did, but it has like one little extra thing. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that for you guys. But I'm gonna do this other one right here, and then I'll give you guys one to try on your own, and then we'll be done. So we have solving graph again. This last one I'm going to give you after this is just a solve. It says do not graph it. Okay, I just want you guys to solve. But this one's the last one where you're going to graph. And it's going to look like this. 8 times a plus 6 is greater than or equal to 34 minus 6a. Now for this problem, I'm going to do something that I don't normally like to do. But I just want to show you that there is no just like one way to do stuff, okay? But let's go ahead and distribute first, okay? So we have 8 times a, 8 times 6. So this is 8a plus 48 greater than or equal to 34 minus 6a. Now, if you guys listened to me when I talked about this before, I like to combine my variables together. I like moving the smaller one. So which one would I normally move? The negative 6a. That's what I want to do. And by doing that, I'm actually going to get my variables on the left side. Okay? So that's good. But I'm not going to do that right now. Okay? Just to practice the opposite side thing. Okay? Let me move 8a over to that side. Now, if you don't want to, don't do it. But I'm going to do it just to show the example. If you're like, no, that's crazy, let's just move that. But I'm going to do it just so that we can practice a little bit more if things are on the opposite side. So here we go. We're not going to get the answer wrong unless I miscalculate something, but I hope I don't. But negative 6a minus 8a is negative 14a. Now I'm going to subtract the 34 over to the left side. I'm going to move it over. Okay, so 48 minus 34, that's 14. Okay, so I get 14 greater than or equal to negative 14a. And now I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 14. Okay, so if I divide both sides by a negative 14, what do I get on the left side? What's my answer for the left side? Negative 1. Do I do anything with the symbol? Yep, I got to change it. And then all I have here is an A. So the reason why I did what I did was because I wanted to remind you, hey, if you're dividing by negative, don't forget to flip the symbol, right? And then right now it's showing my arrow going left. But since my A is on the right side, okay, then it's got to go the opposite way, right? So here we go. So again, normally I would have not done this. I would have moved my numbers to the left, or my variables to the left, because that just seems easier. But I just decided, let's just try something different. It's okay. It's still going to work. All right, solid or empty dot here? Solid dot. Okay, at negative 1. And which direction am I going? To the right. Thank you. I'm going to the right. Even though it's pointing left, but since A is on the opposite side, it's got to go the opposite way. Okay? So I'm going to give you what to do on your own, and then we're done. Here's the last one. And I'll give this to you guys here. This is number 9. Okay? This is example number 4, but it is number 9. They just want us to solve. And it looks like this. 3 times 1 plus 2p minus 4 less than or equal to negative 1 plus 2p. So go ahead and try that. I'm going to pause it. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to solve it. No reason to graph it. If you want to graph it, go ahead and try that. No big deal. But we're going to distribute right here. Okay, and also we're going to distribute here. I know that weirded some people out in some of my classes when they have a negative in front of parentheses. Like, what am I supposed to do? You just distribute it in. Okay, so this is going to be 3 plus 6p minus 4 less than or equal to negative 1 minus 2p. I'm doing this kind of quickly, okay? So 3 minus 4, that's negative 1 plus 6p less than or equal to negative 1 minus 2p. Now I am going to move my variables together. I'm going to move the negative 2p over. So that's negative 1 plus 8p less than or equal to negative 1. And then I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So that's 8p less than or equal to 0. And this also like really messed with some people's heads. I got to divide both sides by 8, right? On the quiz, some people wrote the answer as 8. What's the answer? 0. That should be your answer. P less than or equal to 0. I did get a lot of people that wrote 8 on yesterday's quiz for that. And I was like, no, you can't. Remember, if you have nothing and you share it with everybody, everybody has a bunch of nothing, right? 0. You don't just magically get 10, right? So that's your answer. If you wanted to graph it, it would look something like this. Real quick graph here. But you don't have to. It would look solid and going to the left.